hard to see from way up here.
Fellas, what's going on? Guten Morgen, bonjour, hola. How is everyone doing? As you can probably tell, I'm doing great. Doing quite good, to be fair, considering the weather outside today. It has officially rained, I'm pretty sure, every single day of 2026 in Britain, which is, it's always great, it's beautiful, it's lovely, it's great to know. My time in Dubai, I enjoyed that little bit of sunshine, that little bit of vitamin D that my son, I don't have a son, not yet anyway. Today, we're going to be training legs. Now, I am actually excited for this session, to be honest. I really enjoy my leg sessions at the moment because I'm feeling strong, I'm feeling good. As you may be aware, I've struggled with quite a bit of injuries in the past, not just my shoulder, which obviously in the last video, not the Dubai one, the one before that, obviously I took you through a full upper body session and spoke a lot about training, but more from the standpoint of ribcage mechanics, breathing. Today, we're going to be talking about similar stuff, so we're going to be talking a lot about the feet and the hips and how they relate to leg training and what you can do to make sure that you're getting the most out of your leg training, that you are finishing your sessions and you are absolutely hammering your quads, your hamstrings, your adductors, your glutes, your calves, but without hammering your lower back, your hips, your knees, your ankles. It is literally the last 10 days of my 5-month gaining phase, which I'm currently sat at about 88 kilos, strongest I've ever been across all my lifts. And the reason I've got to this point is because of the way that I'm training. This specific way, this style of training is great for not just building muscle, but also injury prevention as well, and making sure that you are actually able to move. A lot of people would quote it as like quote unquote functional. I would say it's more exciting than that. Functional to me sounds like you're jumping up and down boxes and you're balancing on Bosu balls and doing backflips and shit like that. We ain't gonna be doing any of that sort of stuff. It is normal, heavy training, but with a little bit of a twist in there, which I'm going to go through with you in today's session. Little tweaks and changes that you can make to your current leg day setup to allow you to not only get more out of it in terms of the actual amount of tension that you're able to place on the muscles, but also so you can actually still move. So you're not like a brick stuck in mud, do you know what I mean? You're actually a little bit athletic still. If you play football, if you play paddle, for those of you that indulge, for those of you who may do high rocks, if we've got any high rocks watching on the channel, there's the door. So we're about to drive to the gym now. I'm going to whack some tunes on. Don't know what we'll go for today. Maybe some Take That, potentially. Been watching Take That, the Netflix documentary recently. It's got me into my Take That bag. Listening to Robbie Williams. He's from Stoke, like me. So maybe we'll listen to that on the way to the gym. Get into that. Ready for some big, heavy RDLs. Listening to All I Do Each Night Is Pray, hoping that I'll be a part of you working someday. Whilst I'm just RDLing like 140 kilos. It's what we do. Do you know what I mean?
Right, I'll have to talk directly into the microphone because the music in here is very, very loud. We're starting with what you would call my primer exercises. Now, don't be put off by that word. Yes, it's very fucking boring. Yes, it looks boring, but this stuff that I'm doing now will mean that the more exciting, heavy lifting that we're actually doing with full fucking intensity, balls to the wall, that stuff is more effective and we get more out of that. What primers I would put into a client's exercise program, God, that sounds even more boring. Training program would depend on what deficiencies, ranges of motion or weaknesses within their physique that they have, right? So for me, for example, I have weak feet, particularly my left foot, right? I injured this playing football years ago, and because I had then a weak ankle and a weak foot that couldn't absorb force, couldn't change shape as I moved, then I started to develop more issues further up the chain. Then started to get a clicky knee, weakness around my left hip. So whenever I would do any sort of hinging, any sort of leg raises, my hip flexor, so deep within my hip on the left side, I would get pain. Same with whenever I would do any leg presses, squats, anything like that. Just this entire left side, all my weight wanted to shift over to the right side because this left side, the foot, it started at the foot, it couldn't absorb force properly because it was weak. So very often you'll find people who have knee issues or any issues further up the chain, it actually starts with the feet. So if you can get strong feet, ankles and calves that are able to change shape and absorb force, that will then improve everything further up the chain. So even for my clients who don't have any injuries, I'll very often program program calf work at the start of the program, not just so they don't skip it, but also because it'll then improve everything later on in the session. I think with bodybuilding and with just trying to build muscle in general, a lot of people think about it in too much of a one-dimensional thought process. A lot of people just think, right, I want to lift as heavy as I possibly can, I want to load it up as much as I possibly can, and I want as much stability as I possibly can, which is great, right? That is what builds muscle, yes. But if you do too much of that stuff, very one-dimensional, everything's bilateral, forwards and backwards, there's no rotation, there's no single leg, unilateral stuff involved in that. What you'll very often notice is as you get stronger over time, and it won't happen overnight like that, you will develop weaknesses, become very stiff, immobile, and that leads to injuries. So if you can become strong, but in a wide variety of different ranges of motion, you can be strong from the ground up, feet, knees, ankles, hips, back, spine, rib cage that's mobile. If you can develop all of those qualities and combine that with the stuff that builds the muscle, that's how you get strong over a long period of time without getting injured. So that's what the primers are there for. With the crunch, with a little bit of rotation, you could just look at that as, yes, that's an ab crunch. It's there to develop your abs, but we're also adding a bit of rotation in there as well. That's going to help to open up the rib cage, help to open up the back of the pelvis, the spine, which is then going to help when it comes to the RDLs, because then we can actually move our hips rather than being stiff, and rather than loading the lower back and the spine, we're actually going to be able to load the hamstrings and the glutes properly, effectively, whilst also developing our abs, which for me is a weak point in my physique, which is why it's first in the session. Then we've got the calf raises. Not only grow your calves, but also develop the strength in your feet. And then we've also got the hip flexor machine as well, which a lot of people go, oh, that exercise only works your hip flexors. Most people have got weak hip flexors. And if you've got weak hip flexors, you're going to struggle to get into deep hip flexion, which is what's required in, surprise, surprise, an RDL. So strengthening the hip flexors, strengthening the abs, strengthening the feet will actually then mean that I'm able to be stronger and actually move through my hips on an RDL rather than just loading the lower back. This stuff looks boring, it sounds boring, but trust me, it makes the stuff that comes later so much more effective. Right, so the primary exercises are now done. Feeling loose, feeling warm, feet, hips, abs, feeling switched on, mate, ready to go. So first actual working set exercise is a unilateral seated leg curl. I've got two different variations of this in my program. On my more quad focused day, I've got just a bilateral seated ham curl, and on this day, I've got a unilateral seated ham curl. So obviously with the RDL that I'm doing, that is bilateral. That is going to be loading the spine, loading the hamstrings, loading the glutes quite a fair bit. So we want something in there that's unilateral to get a bit of rotation, to work in a different plane of motion basically. You can simplify or make this stuff as complex as you want. You can also think of it as it's just a different variation of a seated ham curl. Rather than just hammering seated ham curls bilaterally over and over and over again, it's just a slightly different pattern. So we're doing unilateral. It basically just allows me to flatten out any imbalances, get my hamstrings nice and warm, and then ready for the RDLs. Right, I'm currently on my second to last warm-up set. Everything is feeling beautiful, mate, absolutely unreal. Hips are moving nicely, foot, my connection to the floor, like my foot pressure, feels great. And when I'm doing this, that's probably the main thing that I'm thinking about, is like what my feet are doing and where the pressure on my feet actually is. So with this, right, we want to generate internal rotation. A lot of people, when they are doing a hinge of any sort, will do two things. One, they'll have their weight on their heels. If your weight is on your heels too much, right, and you've got no pressure in like your forefoot, you're gonna fall over. You're gonna really struggle to actually push your hips back. So what I say to a lot of my clients is keep more pressure in the front of your foot, so just below your big toe, the ball of your foot, keep a lot more pressure there on the inside of your heel, because that will then dictate how your hips and everything further up the chain moves, and that will mean that your hips move a lot smoother. Your glutes can actually wrap around your pelvis then, and you're able to keep more tension on your hamstrings. If we don't create any internal rotation at the hip, we can't fold at the hips, and then the movement's coming from the spine, and that's when you get a lower back pump, mate. You will get a little bit of lower back, obviously, because you're literally like bent over in position, but we want mainly hamstrings and glutes, and RDL is a hamstring and glute exercise. It's not a fucking back movement. So you'll be glad to know that I've just done my top set. Trust me when I say this. 140, got 6. Didn't record though, did it?
Trust me.
Didn't press record, what a dick. So I've got a back offset anyway, so I'll show you the back offset, but it felt unreal. Like this style of training, I don't just use it myself, I use it with clients. Like I've literally been training with Cal, one of my clients. He came to me from another coach. His knees hurt that much to the point where he couldn't even perform a leg extension, like at all, without pain. We've rehabbed, we've basically got him moving better. We've got him focusing on foot pressure during his movements. We've got his hips nice and strong, developed his abs, developed his adductors, developed his glutes, his ability to move all those muscles and absorb that force through his feet and strengthen them. As a result, surprise, surprise, strongest he's ever been. His knees don't hurt at all. Same issue with his shoulder as well. He had a shoulder issue when he came to me, and he had a knee issue. Surprise, surprise, he no longer has either of those issues. He's got the most muscle he's ever had, he's the strongest he's ever been, he's the least injury prone. So this shit works, mate. It's not just great for injury prevention and rehabbing injuries. The best thing is it actually allows you to build muscle, a lot of it, and get strong as fuck. Right, unilateral leg press done. So as you can see, we've got a mix of loads of different exercises in there. We've not just got your standard leg session that every other bodybuilder does. We all know it. We literally all know it. Adductor, leg extension, hack squat or pendulum, followed by a bilateral leg press, and then they wonder why they're injured all the time. Whereas this, it's the same sort of stuff. There's exercises where we're loading it heavy, but we've sprinkled in a little bit of unilateral stuff in there. We've sprinkled in a little bit of rotation, we've sprinkled in a little bit of hip flexors, all the boring shit, but that, the leg pump I've got, the quad pump, adductor, glute, the connection to my feet, the quads, like my foot, when I'm doing that right, the only way I can explain how my foot feels when I'm doing those exercises after doing the calf stuff, it's like my foot is literally being glued to the fucking platform. I'm doing that leg press, mate, it's like someone's literally got super glue and glued my foot to the platform, and that allows you to produce so much more force, like particularly on the outside of my quad, mate. Outside of my quads, my lateral quad, mate, never in my life with this weight have I had such deep separation between my quads and feathering in the outside of my quad at 88 kilos. That has never happened before in my life, and I start my diet in 10 days, so it's going to be exciting, put it that way.
Could you speak up and stop my mumbling? I don't think you came in clear. Sitting on the top, it's hard to hear you from way up here.
Whew, what a session that was. What a fucking session. My entire lower body is completely and utterly fried, mate. Everywhere. Hamstrings, adductors, glutes, calves, quads, everything. Like the only exercise I couldn't show you, I don't know if you've noticed, but my tripod decided to break literally right at the start of the session. I'd filmed one exercise and the tripod broke, so I've had to find sneaky little angles as best as I possibly could, propping the camera up on machines and shit like that, so that's probably why the angles look a little bit strange. The only one I couldn't show you, because there's literally nowhere to put the camera, was the 45-degree hip extension I did, so I did that unilateral. Same principle for the other stuff, really. You want a mixture of bilateral, unilateral in there, opens up the back of the pelvis, etc, etc. You've heard me say it throughout the entire session, but the one thing I would take away from this video is just open your mind a little bit to different ways of training, and you don't need to completely overhaul or revamp your entire training program or anything like that. Just start mixing in some stuff. So like if everything that you do is bilateral, like I said, the typical bodybuilder program of adductor, leg extension, hack squat, and then bilateral leg press, try throwing in something at the end that's unilateral. So try a unilateral leg press instead of a bilateral. Try adding in some walking lunges or some split squats or something along those lines, right? There's loads of different variations of exercises that you can try, and that's the great thing, is you can see what works for you. The one thing I would say though, is whenever you're doing anything unilateral, try not to, what I describe as, walk on train tracks. So when I give clients walking lunges, very often, and this is because it's so ingrained into their nervous system that everything that they do is external rotation. So when I say walk on train tracks, what I mean is if you were doing a walking lunge, right, imagine there's train tracks. It describes what I'm saying. They step out, out, out. When you're doing walking lunges, step in, step across yourself. Again, you're just feeding more internal rotation into the system, because all of us are so just externally rotation biased, which is why I say why a lot of people will struggle to load the glutes, struggle to load the hamstrings, will constantly have lower back problems, because the entire back of the pelvis, the lower spine, the sacrum, the ilium, there's no space. Those are the fancy terms for the parts of the hip, right? And when you've got the back of the pelvis so compressed and just squished and there's no space for anything to move, it's just jammed up, that's when you start to run into issues. So if we can get that internal rotation and get everything opening up at the back by going through that internal rotation, honestly, it will make a massive difference to your training. And the great thing with this stuff as well is it compounds. So like I always say to my coach Josh, this stuff doesn't just, you get a bit of an increase and it stays there. I've been with my coach Josh now for 18 months, and so I've been learning to train this way now for 18 months. And the difference in my training from when I started to now, even now after 18 months, like today, and I had an upper session that I did yesterday, everything just gets better and better and better. The connection, the amount of tension that I'm able to apply to muscle groups. Like I'm able to now, when I'm doing a chest press, when I'm doing that unilateral leg press, I could literally feel like the outside of my quad contract like crazy. Like the amount of tension I can now put through my muscles. And the crazy thing is, it's come full circle, because when I first started training, I was very focused on my muscle connection and whether I could feel the tension on the muscles I was trying to train. And then once I started running into these issues, these injuries over time, I started to lose it. And now that I'm relearning and going more in depth on this sort of stuff, it's coming back and it's paying off in my physique. Like you've seen in the mirror, like quads, feathered, sick. Anyway, I'll shut up. You're probably sick of hearing me waffle about all these fancy little terms and stuff like that. Hopefully you did take something from this video. You can implement it into your own training and blow those bad boys up. So if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to hit subscribe. Any questions at all, drop them down below in the comment section and I'll answer those for you. And you may as well hit the like button. Go for it. Give it a try. See what happens. Give me a little bit of a dopamine hit. So go for it. Anyway, I'll see you in the next video.